Hi everyone, welcome to your very first introduction video that's a part of this DiP analysis resource module. And here in this video I'm going to give you really just a general overview of not all of the materials that are in this resource module, because this resource module has a lot of resources for you, a lot of step-by-step strategies of, now you've collected your data, what's next, right? How do we analyze it? How do we make sense of some of our data? But really this foundations module is so important because the goal of it is to really help you get in the right mindset for how to analyze your data as part of your PDSA cycles, part of your improvement science project. Because that's going to be, we take a little bit of a different stance when we're analyzing for improvement science than when we do when we're just engaging in traditional research. And based on maybe some of your past activities and part of the coursework, there's something to understanding the essential skills of reading data, interpreting data, and making sense of data. And now that you've done your whole program and you're here and you're in your DiP, we now can take some of those very basic foundational skills and add them to our improvement science toolbox, for lack of a better metaphor. So some things that I want you to think about as you read through the resources that are here in this initial module, your kind of foundations module, your foundations lessons, is that you're really trying to shift from this idea of being a data collector to an improvement analyst. So you've been collecting your data as part of your dissertation. You've also been an improver in that. You're not just a data collector. You're not just this robot that's completely objective. But we do shift into just collecting data into this mindset that goes beyond summarizing. So this isn't just about summarizing what happened. It's about extracting actionable insights that inform your next cycle of improvement. I know you probably only have one cycle improvement for your dissertation, but remember, the goal of this program is not to just do one cycle and that's it. That is an outcome of this program, but it's to help teach you how to be an improver so that you can take these skills and actually continue to apply them in your organization and your context. So I hope you have a next cycle of improvement. But we're moving from summarizing what happened to analyzing what happened. And if you understand Bloom's taxonomy, understanding and being able to identify things is a little bit of a lower level thinking skill than comparing, contrasting, and analyzing when we get into our analytical thinking skills, which is what we're going to be doing here with our data. Now, another note, your 30-day PDSA cycle, and maybe, plus or minus days, I'm just using a general rule of thumb for our program, your 30-day PDSA cycle generated exactly the right amount of data. Don't apologize for limited data or wish you had more. Improvement science is designed to work with small-scale rapid tests, or these small-scale cycles. Again, you're just doing one as part of this project, but hopefully you continue them. So this is where it's different. The mindset is different than past, maybe even academic articles or other empirical research that you might have read about that might have been qualitative or quantitative or mixed methods in nature. Oftentimes, improvement science works with much smaller scale sets of data. And so keep that in mind. And this notion of you don't have to apologize for it. It's not necessarily a limitation. It is, we do want to be mindful of it in how we choose to make our, how we frame our findings and assertions. We're not going to make really, really big claims for everything when we're only working with a small set, but we can make some small set claims based on whatever you find. Analysis here should serve your decision-making, not publication. I think this should be pretty obvious to us in this program, but I'm just bringing it to you as a reminder, because I know sometimes we get in this framework of I'm in a doctoral program and I'm engaging in this dissertation work and oh my gosh, this is the biggest thing. Yes, the dissertation is a very traditional and rigorous document. It's an outcome. It's a rigorous product as part of your doctoral work. And, but we're not necessarily, the goal is not just to write the best dissertation. Let that come secondary. Hopefully your dissertation is good, right? And you're following some of the supports in this program, but we're mainly here to analyze your data so that you can make some really good decisions. So every analytical choice should connect to a decision you or your stakeholders need to make about continuing, modifying, or scaling your intervention. So let all of your analysis be about decision making, not just summarizing, but stepping into that analytical thinking and letting it inform your next decision. So this idea of your PDSA cycle shouldn't just be closed. It's not close-ended. You should always be thinking what's next. Your improvement theory is your analytical compass. So it says improvement theory. I probably should have written that as theory of improvement, right? This is if you think back to what you've already written, what you've already been thinking about for what might feel like ages in this program, that's your analytical compass. So your hypothesis, like these, you didn't write a formal hypothesis, but these guesses, this internal hypothesis and assumptions that you might be making about your project and your driver diagram aren't just your planning tools. Like we didn't just write about those things, your drivers, your driver diagram, and just assume that like that's it. They're also the lens through which you should interpret your findings. So you're bringing your findings alongside your driver diagram. It's this notion that, if this change idea helps to influence, or maybe I'll just say increase this secondary driver, we can therefore assume that the primary driver also improves, which helps us get closer to our aim, right? Like our whole driver diagram is really our compass, or our theory of improvement is really our compass here. And then I want to leave you with this idea that good enough for action is the new standard of rigor. And we hear this in improvement science some, of this idea of like when it's good enough, or is our analysis good enough? Things won't ever be perfect. Remember that a dissertation in practice is trying to give you these skills of creating an intervention or an implementation, collecting data through instruments to measure what it is that you want to measure, and then be able to analyze that data and make some quick decisions. Like hopefully when you're context and your leader and you're engaging in some of these change ideas, these change cycles, you're not spending 2 semesters writing up a dissertation-like thing in order to make improvements and decide where to go next. Like the goal is, how can you continue to make progress, make shifts, influence some of these systems in the sense of like, it's good enough for action. Like we need just enough to determine, okay, where do we go next from here? It's a difference of the mindset of thinking your dissertation is one study that's closed, that has to be this end all be all. I'm going to solve my problem of practice with one 30-day cycle. That's not going to happen. But it's, how is this a stepping stone for getting me in this momentum? How is this one step closer to being an improver, right? You're not trying to achieve statistical perfection. You're trying to learn enough to move forward confidently with your improvement work. And we'll see this a little bit in some of the resources that are specific to how to analyze quantitative data and survey data. We're not really looking for findings that are statistically significant, because that's really challenging to do if you might have been working with a small group of 5 people, right, and implementing your change idea. We don't have really big sample sizes, nor do we have a lot of time and a lot of data to be able to make confident statistical inferences such as that. So it's more of, this is where we'll kind of lean into the practical nature of this. And you will see some of that. You will see that reflected often in some of the resources in this module. And so if I can leave you with 3 tips, especially just for working with these foundation lessons, the lessons you find here under foundations, is to, as you're kind of gearing yourself up for analysis, I want you to, number 1, resist the urge to analyze everything equally. Like not all of your data will carry the same amount of weight. Focus your attention or your analytical energy on the data that speaks most directly to your improvement hypothesis and key drivers. You're probably going to collect data that you will learn over time that, maybe your instrument, your survey, or your interview questions, there were a few questions that actually didn't really help, right? Or that might have kind of gone off track a little bit. You'll find that just because you collected data, just because they might talk in their interview for 5 minutes about something, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to analyze it equally. You want to make sure that you're thinking critically of like, well, is this talk or text, or are these questions really speaking to my my improvement ideas and my key drivers? If not, I might not need to analyze them as richly. And then hopefully you're learning in this process of like, okay, I think I'm understanding how I can develop a better survey next time. I think I'm understanding how I can develop better interview questions next time. So we expect that. We expect your instruments to not be perfect, and so just be mindful there. And sometimes, especially in interviews, participants will sometimes just offer up lots of things. And you might have to steer them on the back on track. There's been several times in interviews where I might ask a question and they don't really answer it, not in the way I want them to, but it's clear that maybe I need to rephrase the question. And so again, if they went off track because they didn't understand the question, ask yourself, do I need to analyze this deeply, or do I need to, what do I need to spend my energy on? Tip number 2, actively hunt for disconfirming evidence. This is huge, especially working with doctoral students. This might be your first time, and there's the pressure and the expectation that this is my doctoral program and this is my, this is the thing. This is the dissertation. Sometimes we're so tempted to only hunt for, code, find evidence or data that support our hypotheses, right? Or our guesses. They support our endeavors, right? So this notion of, especially here, you absolutely want to challenge yourself to look for data that contradicts your expectations. Look for it. Spend a day like reading through your transcripts or your surveys and look for things that might trigger something that's different. This is where the most valuable learning often happens. We can find these little nooks, these little holes of things that we didn't really think about. You know, it's like, oh, I thought maybe this, and this were barriers, but I actually had no idea that this other thing was a barrier, and I'm seeing it. And across my data. And think like, don't you want to, this is a program in leadership. Don't you want to work for a leader who is open-minded? Don't you want to work for a leader or be a part of a team where the leader can see things from lots of different perspectives? And so it's really important for here, especially when we're thinking about equity, when we're thinking about ethics or social justice, that we're looking at our data through different perspectives. We're not just looking for things that kind of confirm you might have talked about these as biases, right? Confirm our subjectivities or our biases, but we're also looking for things that contradict it, because that can be really, oh my gosh, that can be really helpful to know. And then tip number 3, keep asking, so what and now what? For every finding, push yourself to consider what it means for your stakeholders and what action it suggests for your next cycle. So again, data analysis might be step one, summarizing, just asking what is my data? What does my data say? That's part of analysis. But then you need to step back and then it doesn't just end there. Like we don't just in our dissertations write up what our data says and that's it. We answer these questions. Well, so what? Why is this important? And then now what? What do we do next? We will talk a little bit more about now what in your plan for continuous improvement, but be thinking about that here when you're really close to your data and tagging things and, write it down in your research or journal when you're getting these suggestions or these ideas that you might bring to your ACT cycle, your ACT phase, or you're meeting again, perhaps with your stakeholders. You're thinking about, what do we do next? Now what? All of this can be pulled into all of this can be pulled into these active stages of your PDSA cycle, right? Especially your ACT phase. But you might make note of them, of how at least you will document them as part of this program in your chapter of your dissertation that's specifically related to your plan for continuous improvement. So hopefully this is like a helpful primer of like, this is how we are coming alongside data analysis as improvement scientists, as improvers. It's slightly different than traditional academic research, and maybe even slightly different from what you have learned in a few other courses in this program, where you might have just tried to learn some initial skills, and now you can apply those skills to a certain context or to a certain mindset. So good luck.